Good morning, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to IVA and a breakfast meeting which is organized by our Business Executives Council. So IVA is, as many of you know, an engineering academy that is promoting technical and business sciences in order to improve societal development, to say so. And this Business Executive Council is a very important part of IVA because we're working in between the academia, the businesses, industries, and also political decision makers. So this is a forum that is very important for IVA's activities. And so I will give the word now to the chair of the Business Executives Council, Eva Hamilton, who is going to introduce our speaker of this morning. Eva.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you had a great breakfast, so you are ready to listen to Allison Kirkby. We have the great pleasure here to introduce to you the woman, according to the headlines, was the CEO of last year, the most successful CEO last year. That was the headlines, weren't it? And she's also going to tell us about this extremely exciting sector of telecom. We have been talking about disruption all over the place, and this is really a section of disruption. So much is happening. And being a woman of content, I'm excited to hear what would be the future of telecom content distribution. So please, Allison. Give her a warm hand.
Thank you, and it's a great honour to be here this morning. I was supposed to be here in the autumn, and I know I had to cancel at the last minute, and you could probably guess why, because we were quite busy in the autumn and the lead up to Christmas. And first of all, apologies, but my Swedish is atrocious. I might have been the CEO of the year, but I'm certainly the worst in terms of Swedish language in the OMX. And maybe when I am no longer the CEO of the year, when I leave Tele2, I can actually spend some time on learning Swedish. So, as you know, I'm the CEO of Tele2. I've been the CEO for almost 3 years now. I joined Tele2 almost 4 years ago as the CFO. As you can hear, I'm originally Scottish, but I absolutely love my split life between Stockholm and Windsor, which is very close to Heathrow Airport, which makes it easy for me to come in here on a Sunday evening. And I know I've met a few of you in Heathrow Airport late on Sunday evenings as I've been flying back to my apartment. Today, I'm going to talk to you about a company that's very close to my heart, and that is Tele2. And, you know, telecoms is sometimes called the dumb pipe, but I think Helene from Telia here and I are very proud to say that our pipes are not so dumb anymore. You know, Tele2 has always been a great challenger and has very much wanted to make connectivity more accessible for the masses, because we believe a connected life is a better life. And this is the purpose that we launched around 2 years ago, to really embrace the future of what telecoms can be. And it's all about liberating connectivity so that all of our customers can have an even more connected life and a better life, whether they are individuals, households, or enterprises. My presentation today is going to talk a little bit about the history of Tele2, the history of the industry and how it's developed, where Tele2 is at today, and obviously considering we announced a major merger with our intended merger with ComHem at the beginning of this year, I'm going to talk a little bit about where are we going in the future. So first of all, where did we come from? It all started with an extremely inspirational entrepreneur called Jan Stenbeck, who I'm sure many of you know. Unfortunately, I didn't have the honor to meet him. But it started with Jan, who fundamentally believed in the opportunity to break down the monopolies and make connectivity and great content available to the masses and make it much more accessible. In fact, we celebrated celebrated on Friday last week 25 years of making telephony available to the masses, and we actually halved the cost of telephony over the following 4 years between 1994 and 1997. Later, Jan went on to launch the first ever prepaid calling card with Comvik, and Comvik today is actually the brand that Swedish consumers are most satisfied with in terms of their telephony. And that was the start of a very vibrant, energizing journey for Tele2. We've always tried to do things a little bit differently. I like to say we're a bit naughty at times. I sometimes have to translate what naughty means. Certainly when I was in Kazakhstan, my poor translator didn't understand it. But we've always done things differently and challenged the normal ways. When Jan won the 3G spectrum auction, he realized he couldn't afford to build a network. So he went knocking on the door of Telia, and that was the start of network JVs. Probably the first in Europe, which has really enabled Swedish consumers to benefit from the fact that the operators were sharing the infrastructure, so could build the new technologies faster than anyone else, and also the entrepreneurs and the people that put capital into our businesses were able to get a better return on investment in a faster time than if they'd been building networks on their own. That was one of many firsts for Tele2. In my era, we were the first to launch big buckets. We were the first to launch moving away from pricing of voice and SMS and moving towards the pricing of data. We were the first to launch the world's first 4G only network in the Netherlands, which I'll touch on later. And so we like to be one of the firsts in everything, but of course it's an industry that's maturing, it's an industry that's consolidating, so the firsts are becoming more difficult to achieve, but we do try. So what about our industry? Jan did see a future that many others didn't. Martin Cooper, who is the man that is claimed to have invented the modern day cell phone, the McKinsey study said this is not going to take off. And I know we've got some McKinsey competitors in the room. BCG obviously would have got the number right. But McKinsey said only 900,000 mobile phones will be in use at the turn of the century. This thing is not going to take off. Well, they got it wrong by about 400 million. And then, in fact, we now have, in 2018, 5.4 billion unique subscribers. So almost everybody in the world now has access to mobile telephony or wireless telephony. And it is just transforming the world and the accessibility of information and knowledge for all. So Jan was ahead of his time, so was Martin ahead of his time. Others got it wrong as well. Intel said the phone, the idea of a personal computer in the pocket is never, ever going to take off. And that was Andy Grove, from the CEO of Intel. And, today we cannot live without our mobile phones and our mobile devices. In 2007, when the iPhone was launched, The Guardian, which is a daily newspaper, said, this will not take off. I cannot see it becoming mainstream, and in fact, it's most likely not to take off in the developed world, particularly in countries like Sweden. Well, they got that wrong. By 2018, almost 1.2 billion iPhones have been shipped, and the Swedes love the iPhone. Certainly Sweden consumes the highest amount of iPhones in all of our markets. And I said probably across Western Europe, the Swedes very much love the Apple device. But, Apple is more than a device manufacturer. It is an it delivers media, it delivers apps, it delivers cloud services. These tech companies are moving beyond what they started with in the beginning. The vast majority, increasingly, the non-device sales of Apple are generating more than the devices alone. And you've seen that in the latest results. You know, Apple are now talking about going into content. They're going to invest $1 billion this year. Netflix, which was once an enabler to get DVDs or download videos, are investing $5 billion in content. Amazon, once a competitor to the high street booksellers, are now are increasingly investing in content as well. So you're seeing the lines are very much blurring between what some of these tech companies did in the beginning and what they are now doing. And that is very much encouraging convergence in all of the industries that we work in. Now, what does that mean for data? Well, as these devices and consumers increasingly consume data, and particularly video, it means that data is absolutely exploding. And what you've seen in the last 7 years is a data growth of 4,500%. You're now seeing 96 billion gigabytes of traffic going through our networks. Here in Sweden alone, over a similar period, we've seen traffic increase by 9,000%. Luckily, the newer technologies are more efficient than the older technologies. Otherwise, this growth would obviously be unaffordable for us operators. But it is putting massive demand on us to look at how we develop the technologies for more efficiency and how we get after more scale so that we have the ability to keep investing in the future. In Sweden alone, some statistics, you know, despite what The Guardian said, that, you know, the iPhone would not take off, the Swedes, because you are serviced with such fantastic networks, thanks to the operators, but also the likes of Ericsson and Nokia, who've led the world in terms of network development. You know, what you're seeing is almost everybody has access to the internet now in Sweden. You've just got the older generation that are lagging a bit behind, but I think compared to their British counterparts, I can say that even Swedish 76-year-olds or my mother-in-law, who's 100, actually uses a mobile phone and accesses the internet. But the interesting thing for us is how, you know, use of internet and the mobile is now almost the same as use of the internet in general, because mobile telephony has made the internet much more accessible. In terms of the use of digital services, online banking, mobile bank ID, you know, 80–90% of consumers use the internet to access the bank. In the UK, mobile banking is only used by 63% of the population. So that, again, that's how far behind we are in the UK. And that's very much driven by accessibility to great networks. If any of you have ever taken the train or driven into London, you know, you cannot even have a telephone call, never mind do your email consistently, which is quite shocking for a country like the UK. Mobile payments, 76%, GPS and maps, 83%. But it's media consumption that is really driving the phenomenal growth, and particularly driven by the young who just want to be attached to their phones all the time. I know that's not always good. Young boys apparently spend 42.5 hours per month on their mobile devices. And certainly I can say that my 13-year-old son definitely looks as though he's on his phone 42.5 hours a month. But it does allow us to connect with our families as well. My family are in the UK when I'm here during the week, and so without connectivity, I wouldn't be able to keep in touch with them. In fact, this morning, for those of you that saw me when I was coming in the door, I'd finally managed to get a hold of my 19-year-old who's in Cambodia, and I hadn't been able to talk to her for 5 days. And she said, well, the problem was, Mum, I bought a SIM card from a guy in a tuk-tuk, and he didn't explain to me how to make it work. So it just shows it's not, even tuk-tuk drivers can sell SIM cards now to 19-year-old girls who are traveling. But adults, again, very much consuming data and media on the go and digitally. This shows the increase we're each spending about 10 hours extra per week online than we did previously. And it's this, you know, it used to be mainly in the home, but it's very much in the outdoors as we've improved outdoor coverage, and the penetration of smartphones has increased the usage of data when we're out and about as well. Now, you know, as I said at the beginning, you know, the telecoms companies have been, you know, called out as the dumb pipes. But the dumb pipes are actually, you know, 7 of the top 10 companies in the world absolutely require the connectivity that we give them to enable to run their business models. And so I would not underestimate the power of the dumb pipe as these companies continue to develop and evolve, and our role in the ecosystem going forward. And that is putting, as I mentioned earlier, quite significant demands on us as an industry. You know, the capex that has gone into the telecoms industry since 2010 has been $1.2 trillion. And it's expected with the advent of 5G and continued rollout of fiber in the coming years, you know, $500 billion is expected to be invested alone in the coming 2 years. And a large chunk of that is obviously going to be driven by the cost of spectrum to allow us to continue to make our networks even more efficient and continue to drive down the latency so that we get much faster response times. So that's what we've been looking at. That's a little bit of the past. What does that mean for Tele2 today? And I thought I would just bring you up to speed with where Tele2 is at and what our strategy is today, and where we're taking it into the future. Tele2 today is now in 8 markets. We were once upon a time in 25 markets. You know, today it's all about scale, and if you don't get scale being in multiple empire-built geographies, it's much more important about having scale in markets where you have a long-term right to win. So Tele2 has reduced its footprint. I think we were in 11 markets when I joined Tele2 just 4 years ago. We're now in 8, and that will shrink further as well, because that includes the Netherlands. And we have a +1 because we have a global, small, but special IoT business that is very fast growing. Our net sales, that was our results for last year. That now excludes the Netherlands. For those of you that know, we announced our intention to merge our Dutch business with T-Mobile in December, so we now do not report that in our numbers. But we have around 17 million customers across the 8 markets and IoT, and around 6,500 employees. But increasingly, we are shrinking to our core business, where we really do have the right to win over the long term, and we're starting to allocate capital and really invest to make Sweden and Baltics the core of Tele2 going forward. It is around 80% of our sales today, Sweden and the 3 Baltic states, and it is very much almost 90% of our EBITDA. This is the strategy that has enabled us to focus and differentiate and take the company forward from now. Our purpose and what guides all of our decision making is to fearlessly liberate a more connected life for all of the people that we have the chance to give connectivity to. So that's the purpose that drives all of our decisions. And then we have some geographic choices, and when we have some capability choices that is all around how this will enable us to win over the short, medium, and long term. We've defined our markets into 4 segments. The Baltic Sea Challenger is the Sweden and the 3 Baltic states, where we have strong, well-established positions, very strong brands, very strong networks that we intend to invest in and develop further over the long term. We have 3 investment markets that have not yet reached scale, and we will look to find ways to create scale over the coming months and years. Hence, that's why almost 2 years ago, we announced a JV in Kazakhstan with the number 4 player so that we could become a stronger number 3. And it gave us the route to exit in March 19. So it de-risked our position in Kazakhstan. Since establishing that JV, the JV was established in March 2016. We've gone from a 0% profitability to, in the fourth quarter, almost a 30% EBITDA profitability. And we're very much on track to be the number 2 player with an EBITDA margin above 30% as we plan for our exit in early 2019. In the Netherlands, again, we created the world's first 4G only network, but the world around us changed when we got the spectrum. Between getting the spectrum and launching our network, the Dutch market moved towards convergence, and KPN and others started selling mobile alongside fixed and alongside TV, and that shrunk the market for the mobile-only player. And at the same time, the EU allowed Vodafone and Ziggo to merge. So what you've got in the Dutch market now is connectivity service. 86% of the market is in the hands of 2, basically a duopoly between KPN and Vodafone Ziggo. So we believe that it's in the best interest of the Dutch consumer and the Dutch sector industry now for ourselves and T-Mobile to merge, and that's our intention, as I mentioned. And then our third investment market is Croatia, very small, but very fast growing at the moment. You know, we're growing high single digits. I mentioned IoT as an investment area for us. It's small, but fast growing and very exciting. But I think with IoT, you will see, again, there'll be opportunities for consolidation and for JVs to be developed to take it to the next level. And then we had, you know, our cash generators are just there to fuel cash to put back into our Baltic Sea Challenger or our investment markets. And that was Austria and Germany. We divested Austria in the fourth quarter, and Germany, we're just running it for cash now. So that is where we play. How we win, these are what we have assessed as where we believe we are different from the competition. And it's leveraging these 4 areas that we aim to differentiate ourselves against Telia, against Telenor, against Hutch, and whoever we compete against in the markets. And then underpinning all of this are the foundations that were established when Jan Stenbeck founded us. 1, to be a responsible challenger and really serve the communities we operate in. And increasingly now, that's all about protecting our customers' personal information. Privacy is extremely important, and that's the one role that telcos very much have, and they have to hold on to that. And then we have a very special winning people and culture. So quickly on our differentiators. We aim to have some of the most positively fearless brands. They're a bit edgy, as I say, a bit naughty. We aim to build deep emotional relationships with our customers. We aim to use the access to more and more data about our customers to build more deep and meaningful relationships over time with them so that we can service them with all of their connectivity needs. That's not just for individuals and households once we have ComHem. Obviously, we have now a significant B2B business, having bought TDC's Swedish business here just last year. And hopefully you've all seen the campaign. We're helping companies establish an end up, not a startup. And so if you do have a startup idea, you can apply to get a fully established office with its full range of connectivity services so that you can end up in a good place. And that's our B2B campaign that is out there at the moment. That's brands first and foremost. And, you know, my background is I spent 25 years in FMCG, and I really believe in the power of the brands, and increasingly in the world of technology, of telecoms, you know, our customers are increasingly associating themselves with the brands that they get their services from. Our next differentiator is about connecting things our customers love. Now, if you've ever met our treasurer, he does look a bit like our treasurer. He's a bit stressed at the moment, finding quite significant amounts of debt. So connecting things our customers love is all about building the world's best networks with the highest speeds and the lowest latency, and then enabling through great commercial propositions our customers, whoever they are and whenever they are, to connect the plethora of connected devices that they have. So that strategy is all about our networks and how, through our commercial propositions, we connect the many, many devices and fuel more data that we can monetize. This is the strategy that has very much overseen our 2G, our 3G strategy, our 4G strategy, and our 5G strategy, which obviously we will be taking to market probably 2020 before you really see 5G properly take off in the Swedish market. Our third differentiator, and this is one that we've still to improve quite dramatically, is enabling that digital first customer experience. Consumers they just want to be able to buy our services and engage with us digitally, but increasingly digitally, but they also want one omni-channel experience. And so we need to be able to understand who our customers are, no matter whether they're shopping with us online or in our stores or through our call centres. And we really need to improve that digital interface and that digital experience, because that's what consumers want going forward. And that's an area of big priority for us, and we're investing quite significantly in the digital arena. And of course, the acquisition of ComHem will enable us to take that digital experience even further with the digital apps that ComHem have developed already. And finally, as a challenger, we cannot exist without having the lowest cost structure in our industry. We aim to be 20% cheaper than our competitors in everything we do. We're not there with most things yet, but that's our ambition. So for us to continue to liberate connectivity and make it affordable, we always have to have that lowest possible cost structure. And it was this ambition that drove us towards launch our Challenger programme, which was a major restructuring programme that we launched around 3 years ago, and has taken $1 billion per annum cost out of our costs in just under 3 years. So that's our strategy, and what kind of results has that strategy delivered? Well, you know, Exane Paribas have just issued a report having now had a chance to digest all of European telcos' results over the last year. And in an industry that struggles to grow, Tele2 grew its mobile revenue 9% last year. And more importantly, we grew our EBITDA 23%, and we increased our cash generation by over a half. And that's because we're becoming much more choiceful. And of course, we are now getting to scale in some of our investment markets where we have, over a number of years, ploughed some significant investment into those markets. That has helped us have a great return for our shareholders, up almost 100% in the last 4 years. And as one leading analyst in Sweden said, telcos are boring, Tele2 is not. And we certainly have continued to not be boring since we announced our results earlier this year. So where are we going now? First of all, technologies, we're now getting ready for 5G. But as I said, it will be probably a couple of years before the average consumer can access 5G more openly. I know Telia will be doing it in some cities before then, so you can get the experience. But you know, the devices that will really give the consumer use cases to experience it are probably a couple of years away. 5G will make our networks more efficient, which is great. At the moment, the average speed is probably only 15 to 20% more than what you see with LTE Advanced. So you probably won't notice a huge difference, whereas you saw a massive change when you move from 3G to 4G. You won't see the big speed change with 5G, but what you will see is a significant change in latency. So the reaction time. So if you're gamers or your sons or daughters are gamers, that's probably where the big opportunity will be for them. 5G will then very much fuel augmented reality, virtual reality, and I think that's where the early consumer use cases will come. And you're already seeing that in Mobile World Congress just recently in Barcelona. You saw a lot of examples of AR and VR. IoT will just continue to keep developing. Autonomous vehicles very much require 5G. Sadly, you saw the downside of autonomous vehicles in what happened yesterday with Uber autonomous vehicles, and that says we have a lot to learn before you really see mainstream autonomous vehicles. And then artificial intelligence is another important area. I was, and there you can see a robot. I always listen to BBC Radio in the morning. It keeps me in touch with what's going on at home. And there was a great example of AI this morning. And it was talking about how the farming industry is really embracing artificial intelligence. And they've got 3 robots in the field. One is called Tom, one is called Dick, and one is called Harry. And these 3 robots, one is making sure that the field is irrigated, one is making sure that the seeds are planted in the right way, and the third is looking out to make sure that they are growing appropriately. And all of the information that come from Tom, Dick, and Harry go to Wilma in the control center, and Wilma then sends all of that information to the farmer. So I think AI is going to be a great opportunity finally for gender equality, because Wilma is in charge. So that is the new technologies that 5G is powering. Now, thank you to my colleagues at BCG. We consulted with them over the course of last year. What are the big trends that telecoms are going to have to embrace and face to ensure that we can influence and stay relevant and continue to deliver the appropriate returns to our shareholders and the appropriate experiences to our customers over the coming years? I'm not going to go into all 10 of those, but I am going to focus on the 4 that very much has led some of the strategic decisions that we've made most recently, whether that be to exit Austria or to merge with T-Mobile in the Netherlands, or of course to get into the ComHem merger here in Sweden. And it's very much driven by fixed and mobile pricing, fixed and mobile convergence, M&A and alliances, and the need for investing in more digitalized services going forward so that your customers very much stay with you for longer and stop churning as they generally do in mobile telephony today. So it was those 4 strategic themes that really led us to decide that we wanted to create a new and unique integrated connectivity challenger here in the Swedish market. As you will see, Tele2 and ComHem are extremely complementary. We are both very, very focused on and obsessed by delivering to our customers what they need and what they don't know that they need yet. And to enable us to continue to invest in the future and keep our shareholders happy. It gives us scale, it gives us diversification, it will give us significant synergies, and it will in general make Tele2 a much more attractive financial profile company going forward. You all know the brands. We have a fantastic portfolio of brands now. I cannot comment on how those brands might evolve over the coming months and years, but we've got a great platform to build from. And just why are these assets so complementary? Because first of all, both of us are very focused on enabling a digital life. And, you know, ComHem really takes the power of the digital life into the home in a way that Tele2 doesn't, because we're just on generally SIM cards and devices today. So we aim to be a leading integrated connectivity provider. We have award-winning networks. Our network is now available to almost 100% of the Swedish population. And ComHem have really invested in their network over the last few years, and now is now available to around 60% of the Swedish households, and tends to offer some of the best and highest speeds for those of you that want to stream, particularly Netflix. So we will be number 2 in mobile and fixed broadband, and we will be number 1 in digital TV when the two companies come together. And finally, as I said, we are both obsessed by satisfying our customers. And that's our ambition when these two companies come together. Tele2's Swedish ambition is fastest growth through most satisfied customers. And that very much builds on the emphasis that ComHem have put into satisfying their customers. Admittedly, they came from a very low standard, as I've heard from some of my shareholders that didn't want me to buy ComHem. But they have improved their position and their service to customers over the last few years. This, just in terms of where it takes us, as you can see here, we become a very strong number 2 to Helene. Sorry, Helene. But really giving us the real power to offer a real alternative to individuals, households and businesses in the Swedish market. And there you can see the scale of the market shares that we will have in TV and broadband and in mobile telephony. And what does that look like? Today, Tele2 generally, the left-hand side is what we do today. We can call and surf abroad. Yes, we can connect you at home with a mobile broadband, but we can't connect the whole family wanting to game and stream video and do their emails all at the same time. We can remotely manage our home, we can connect gadgets, and we can, through IoT, start to connect our car. But when we combine with ComHem, we can include all of the other things and offer that as one integrated range of services to truly and fearlessly liberate a more connected life for all of our customers, no matter who they are. So it started with our purpose, it ends with our purpose. I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into Tele2 and where we've been and where we're going. It's been a very exciting few years. It's going to be another exciting few years ahead, and I'll very gladly take any questions that you now have.
So I will start to just ask you some questions, and then the floor is open for all kinds of questions. First, you have a mind-blowing purpose. I mean, who phrased it? Fearlessly, whatever. We fearlessly liberate people to live a more connected life. What is fearlessly in this case?
Fearless, well, when we, so the previous purpose was all about offering more for less. And when I had the great honour to step up as CEO, I felt, well, anybody could say they can offer more for less. You could be a toothpaste, or you could be a shampoo, or you could be a telecoms company. And so I took about 30 individuals from throughout the company, individuals that really lived and breathed and had Tele2 in its DNA, and said, how do we create a purpose that really gives us something that's different to others, but stays true to what we give to our consumers? And we felt fearlessly really encapsulates the challenger spirit and the entrepreneurial spirit that all of us chose when we chose to come and work at Tele2. Now, fearlessly, as an accountant, I was once a CFO, when I heard fearlessly, I thought, ooh, does that mean taking too much risk? And we are still in Kazakhstan, oh dear. But fearlessly is you do have to assess the risk before you fearlessly jump into the unknown. So it's measured risk, and fearlessly just, it brings energy. But
it's fearless to say we're going to be 20% cheaper than anybody else. How would you ever be 20% cheaper and then deliver 23% EBITDA? It seems to me some kind of contradiction.
Well, our networks, because we share them with others, are 40% cheaper than to build and to maintain than if we had a standalone network of our own. And they perform just as well, and sometimes even better, than those that have their own networks. So if we can get a 40% cost differential in network, we can afford to invest some of that back into the brands, into the digital experiences, into our people, so that overall we can still have a 20% lower cost to serve.
The big challenge is 5G. What would you say, how do you see Tele2 within 7 years' time when we actually do have 5G? What will be the great challenge and the great difference?
I think the great challenge for 5G is it's been talked up a lot by the equipment manufacturers, and because they're all desperate for growth. And the jury is really still out as to, you know, beyond autonomous vehicles and some very specific industrial use cases, where the real mass opportunity is. I think it will enable much more increased augmented reality and virtual reality. So I guess we all might be walking around with 3D headsets, sadly, or we'll all be having meetings with 3D headsets rather than just with a screen in front of us. But I think in general, you'll just have even faster connectivity.
100%. But I mean, it might, in order for Tele2 to remain in a strong position and perhaps even gain more, it would take some quite big changes in order to survive the big disruption of 5G. And I would like you to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, so increasingly mobile networks, to be able to cope with the demand from increased data, need more fiber connected to them for the backhaul. Because spectrum alone, you know, you can get it within very, very short distances, but the more data that goes through the network, you need the fiber. So that is one of the that is another reason for the Tele2 merger with ComHem, because it gives us access to the fixed cable that allows backhaul. And what you're also seeing is the fixed players, their consumers are demanding more wireless, more freedom to be connected. And so what you're also seeing from them is they need the wireless piece and therefore the spectrum that we give them. And so, you know, 5G is very much fueling the need for more consolidation in the market so that we can afford the investments into fiber and the investments into spectrum. And if 5G really takes off with lots of consumer use cases, what you'll see is increasingly small cells on building and very, very high speed, low latency experiences in a very small radius. And that will require increased investment as well. I do believe that 5G will not just fuel more consolidation. I think it will also fuel more infrastructure sharing, because not all players in every market will be able to do it on a standalone basis. And we're getting ahead of ourselves already now by doing the merger with ComHem here and doing the merger with T-Mobile in Netherlands, where we will still retain a 25% stake in that business.
We do have the CEO of Telia in the room, and still I want you not to be too polite. Considering we have Ericsson, we have Telia, and we have 5G coming up, and we have Huawei, how would you consider the two Swedish companies' position in this future battle?
We love to compete against Telia. Listen, Telia and Ericsson are both very, very strong companies. It's good to see that...
So is Huawei.
Yes, it's good to see that Ericsson are becoming more competitive again. They were not competitive for a number of years. In fact, we have despite being a Swedish company, we have very, very little business with Ericsson. But that once upon a time goes back to the walled garden that, you know, Telia did not allow Ericsson to work with anybody but them in the Swedish market. So that forced us to go to Nokia, it forced us to go to Huawei. Luckily, Ericsson don't behave that way anymore, and Telia don't behave that way either. But, you know, it's good to see Ericsson starting to fight back. Because you know, to just have Nokia and Huawei is not good. I don't think any industry or no customer base is well served when you only have 2 players in the market.
Would you say that Ericsson is behind Nokia and Huawei, considering 5G?
I wouldn't say so. I think what we are seeing, actually, is there anybody from Nokia in the room? I think what we are seeing at the moment is because Ericsson were investing heavily in R&D 3 to 4 years ago, when Nokia were going through their restructuring, Ericsson are actually quite well ahead in terms of 5G at this point in time.
That sounds very comforting.
Yeah.
My last question, and then it's up to you here. What is your take on net neutrality?
I think it was there to serve a purpose, but you know, I think it's really important that we make our networks accessible to all, and we don't differentiate any one player because of power of that player. But as I think the difficulty at the moment now, where people are, they're trying to give away social media for free or video for free, that it is risky where that could go if we're not very careful.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's confusing to the consumer, because the consumer thinks they're getting it for free, but they're not necessarily getting it for free, dependent on how you measure it.
So you're a supporter of net neutrality. That's my interpretation.
I'm a supporter of offering connectivity in a very transparent and unlimited way.
Would you say, yes, you're a supporter of net neutrality?
I am not a supporter of taking money from certain players to prioritize their traffic on our network.
But what then is net neutrality? I mean, if you're not supportive of that, then you're...
But no, I think
what is you have a reservation
as
here.
long as you are explaining to your consumer in a transparent way what social media or video for free is, then I don't see that in the same vein as I see us differentiating, say, Facebook traffic or Netflix traffic. That's very, very different debate, and I would not agree with that.
Okay, who wants to be first? Who wants to be second? Come on. I know you are knowledgeable. Yes, here's Magnus. He's a relative of mine. I knew I could trust him.
Thank you. Magnus Angerfeldt. Yeah, Tele2 may be an exception, but the total market for operators has been zero growth the last 2 decades. Price pressure, regulation, etc. And do you think going forward that this IoT and 5G can change the ship around, so we will see a positive market for operators going forward?
I think, I hope the regulatory environment is a bit kinder to us in the coming years as we invest heavily. Roam like at home has obviously been great for consumers, but it's hit the operator community. I think the fact that they have not allowed some consolidation in some markets has not necessarily been good either. I think one of, you know, I looked at it as I think the telecoms industry did a really bad job of serving customers for a long time. And the incumbents ripped off consumers, and new competition came in. And so one of the reasons the telecoms industry has not grown the top line for a number of years is because the incumbents are still trying to protect their back books. Until all of that is flushed out, then the average might not have a lot of top line growth. But those of us that don't have the back book, therefore have the growth potential that those that have protected historical high pricing will have. But that is not flushed out yet. It's probably flushed out in the consumer segment. I think you're increasingly seeing the consumer segment is showing healthy development, but the B2B segment is still very much under pressure because of legacy contracts and new competition coming in and forcing pricing down. So overall, I think telecoms operators like Tele2 will have more room for growth than perhaps some of the incumbents.
Marie Nilsson, Medievision. I would like to know what your view is on consolidation between telcos and media, as we have seen in the US, for example.
Yeah. I think you need, I mentioned some of the numbers that the big, Amazon are investing $1 billion in content, Netflix are investing $5 billion in content. I personally believe it's very dangerous for telcos to get into content. I think where the convergence and the consolidation is happening is in the distribution. So we're acquiring ComHem because they have a wonderful distribution platform that enables customers, households to access their linear content alongside their digital content, alongside their OTT content. But ComHem doesn't own its content. It buys it makes this platform available to all, and it's an aggregator of content so that the consumer can then pick and choose what they want. I think unless you have massive scale in a market like the US, then it might make sense to invest in content. But for smaller regional players like ourselves, I don't think it's a good idea to invest in content. But I do believe offering the platform that allows consumers to connect to content is a great opportunity. And if you actually look at what has happened, if you study some of the European telcos that have chosen to invest uniquely in exclusive content over the last few years, their total shareholder return has either been negative or dramatically lower than those that have chosen like the ComHem route or the distribution route. So I've been in media. I know how flaky it can be. I know the scale of investment that's required to produce a drama series and sports rights, and I think it's quite dangerous for small telcos to expose themselves to that. But consolidation is happening, but I believe the consumer will experience it through the platform fueled by the telecom providers' connectivity.
Have you heard any rumors about Amazon coming in on the media? I mean, they might come now in e-commerce during the spring, but when it comes to big media launch in Sweden, have you heard anything that we haven't heard?
No, I haven't, but you can expect they'll do it. They're doing it everywhere. They're hiring some of the top talent in the content creation industry, and they are investing heavily. So
no,
beware.
I mean you successfully acquired ComHem, and then you had these plans to merge with TDC, and it was stopped.
That wasn't us. That was MTG.
Sorry. Right.
So we're buying ComHem.
But when in this very moving market,
yep.
What are the future options? And now you can be very, without being committed to anything, but what are the future options that you see in the entire market, not only?
Listen, the merger of Tele2 and ComHem is big enough to digest for the next couple of years. That is a huge integration project with fantastic synergy opportunity and fantastic opportunity to create new products for our customers, and that's very much going to be the priority for Tele2 over the next couple of years. We will obviously look at similar, perhaps tack-on acquisitions in the Baltic region, and we'll always be looking for what the other opportunities are. But once you're number 2 in mobile, number 2 in broadband, and number 1 in TV, it'll become more limited to what we actually do in Sweden beyond just fueling more of the new integrated services.
I would like to hear from the CEO of TV4. What will be the consequences of this merger between Tele2 and ComHem? Because you are really heavily dependent on ComHem as your main distributor.
Say again, Eva. The question, once again, while I'm thinking about the answer.
What are the consequences for TV4 after this merger between Tele2 and ComHem? As you are so heavily dependent on ComHem, I mean, did you welcome it, or how was your reaction when you heard about the merger?
We had no real strong opinions on this one, since Tele2 is all about mobile so far. So as long as it doesn't make ComHem an even bigger, not monopolist, but very, very strong counterpart, we're fine.
You're fine. He's fine.
And it will make us a very strong counterpart.
Okay. So finally, what are your future plans? Allison Kirkby, what are you up to next year?
I have no clue. It's quite exciting. So, no, I obviously have to get this deal over the line in terms of a regulatory point of view and a shareholder point of view. I am absolutely committed to Tele2 until the last day, and then I don't know what. I have an apartment here. I have a husband that has 2 boats now, and so he doesn't want me to leave Stockholm. You know, it was like, you cannot leave Stockholm, Alison, sorry. You need to find another job. So if there's any headhunters in the room, I'm available. But no, I tend to, in between roles, I tend to give myself a big challenge. And so before joining Tele2, I cycled from Nicaragua to Panama. And at the moment, I'm looking at either Japan or Bhutan, not cycling between the two, either one or the other. Bhutan is very hilly. Japan, maybe not so. I guess it will depend what time of the year I'm able to go off on my adventure. And then we'll see.
And God bless Skype.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you very much.
So next time will be in May, the 22nd? 24th May, when we will have our new chairman, Carl-Henrik Svanberg, coming in to inform us, tell us, entertain us. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank you.